Grabo. Estamos grabando la clase del grupo 3. No, a ver, 1, 2, 3. Es del grupo 3, Grammar 2, Morpho, UMCE, del día 13 de diciembre. Los objetivos del día de hoy son poder hacer un resumen de Adjective Phrases en un momento y luego poder hacer análisis de oraciones reales tomadas desde el periódico digital theguardian.com. Okay, so let's do it. Adjective review taken from Biver et al. Okay, I'm going to read it. Defining characteristics of adjectives. Yeah, adjectives, they can be classified or they share or they have some characteristics, right? They have several of them. We're going to list them and then we're going to provide a summary. A, morphological characteristics. That is to say, adjectives can be inflected to show comparative and superlative degree. I won't say much about this, but just the fact that we are going to state another difference before this. We're going to state the presence or the existence of short and long adjectives. I don't like those terms. They say, some people say, I don't remember well the name, but teachers, basically. They say that short adjectives are composed of up to till 2 syllables. And when you have more than 2 syllables, you are talking about a long adjectives. A short adjective then can show or can express degrees, right? Superlative or comparative degrees. These degrees are created by the presence of bound, suffix, inflectional morphemes, right? The first morpheme is the ER, the suffix ER, which is used so as to provide the meaning of or the degree of the comparative degree. Meanwhile, the other one is the EST, which is going to provide the superlative degree, right? On the other hand, when you have a long adjective, you're not going to create or state this degree contrast by a suffix, right? Because they are long adjectives. How can I do it? You're going to do it by a periphrostic construction. Periphrostic construction. That is to say, we're going to state the very same grammatical feature, but by the presence of another lexeme. In this case, comparatives are going to be stated by the presence of the adverb premodifier more. Meanwhile, the superlative degree is going to be stated by the presence of the adverb premodifier most, right? The most, more, and the most. Another interesting stuff about degrees has to do with the idea, has to do with the form in which we are going to build that adjective phrase. Let's remember that adjective phrases, obviously they're created by an adjective head, and then you can have some other stuff inside of that. Usually what you're going to have is an adverb premodifier, right? But as a post modifier, or in other words, as whatever it comes right after the head can be a complement or a post modifier. I'm thinking about the presence of a prepositional phrase right after the comparative, the short comparative adjective. Right. What you're seeing is an adjective phrase composed of a single adjective head, right? So you have just one adjective. Right. But right after that adjective, you have a prepositional phrase. This prepositional phrase is complementing the meaning. Therefore, it's not optional, but obligatory. Sorry. So yeah, inside of adjective phrases, we're going to see this later on. You can have complements, that is to say, some obligatory structures, right? And then you just provide the normal average prepositional phrase analysis. Then syntactic characteristics, that is to say, where we're going to find them, right? Adjective phrases, I would say, or adjectives can be placed in 2 different places, right? Or syntactic context. And because of that, they receive names. So you have attributive and predicative Adjectives. Attributive adjectives are adjectives as noun phrase pre-modifiers or modifiers inside of a noun phrase, right? Meanwhile, predicative adjectives are adjective phrases. Please write this down all over again. Adjectives, they can be labeled by the place where you're going to find them, right? Syntax. Because of that, you can label them as attributive and predicative adjectives. An attributive adjective is a modifier inside of a noun phrase, right? Is a modifier. Meanwhile, a predicative adjective is an adjective phrase acting as a complement within a valency pattern. We're going to see that later on. Meanwhile, the last element would be the semantic one. We're not dealing with that idea because it has to do with semantics more than with grammar. But I'm just going to read it. Semantic characteristics, they typically characterize the referent of a nominal expression. I won't say much. Many of the most common adjectives are central adjectives. That is to say, they share all of these characteristics, right? And in terms of thesis and antithesis, if there's one central, then will be one peripheral. That is to say, all over again, adjectives can be also categorized or labeled as central adjectives or peripheral adjectives. Peripheral adjectives. Many of the most common adjectives are central adjectives. That is to say, they share all of these characteristics. That is to say, they share the idea of degree. They can be graded, right? In terms of comparative or superlative, they can be attributive or predicative, and they can have a lot of meaning or not that much meaning. But we're not going to deal with that anyway. Okay. If the adjective does not share all of these characteristics, it's labeled as a peripheral adjective. So if they share all of these characteristics, central. If you miss just one of them, peripheral. Variability in the defining characteristics of adjectives. Okay, so here we have a chart with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different columns, and then you have the example. So we're going to provide one adjective. In this case, is the adjective big. Morphological inflection. That means, can I turn big into a comparative by adding the bound suffix inflectional morpheme, er or est? Yes, I can do it. Can I say bigger? Can I say biggest? Yes, I can. Therefore, tick, right? Attributive role. That is to say, can I place big as a modifier inside of a noun phrase? A big house. Yes, I can do it. Therefore, tick. Predicative role. That is to say, could it be or can it play the role of a complement within the valency pattern? Of a clause, I am big. I am big. Yes, it can. Therefore, tick. Descriptive meaning, I won't say much because it has to do with semantics, but gradability is the other one. That is to say, can the adjective big be modified by the presence of an adverb? For example, very big. Yes. As it fulfills or as it accomplishes all the characteristics or features provided, then we're going to say that central, that big is a central adjective. On the other hand, you have beautiful, which is another adjective. So I'm going to state or I'm going to try to prove whether it can have a morphological inflection. Can I say beautifuler or beautifulest? No, I can't. Therefore, I'm not going to tick on that column. And just because of that, I'm going to say it's a peripheral adjective. And then you do the rest with the same with all the rest. How can we create adjectives? Using participial forms, adding word ending or derivational suffixes, or by compounding. Participial adjectives are all these adjectives that seem or they somehow relate to a verb. Why? Because they are actually verbs. Both ing and ed participial forms can be used as adjectives. That is to say, if I take a verb and then if I add an ing, I can use it as an adjective, I'm going to think about one example. Let's take, for example, the word amaze, amaze, and then I'm going to add the ing, amazing, and now I'm going to try to use it as an adjective, an amazing story. In that case, amazing is an adjective, right? Is a participial adjective because it comes from a verb, from the participial form of a verb, from the present participle, right? Um, an amazing story, then amazing is an adjective, a participial adjective is attributive because it's the modifier inside of a noun phrase. Now I'm going to try to take the very same adjective and try to use it as a predicative adjective. This is amazing. It works in this very same way. So yeah, that's my proof. Now, the problem with participial adjectives, as you can see, is the fact that what happens if I find them right after the head, the noun? Okay, what happens if I find the participial adjective as an attributive post modifier adjective? That is to say, I'm going to place that amazing right after the noun head. What's the problem then? The problem is that that amazing, that adjective, that participial adjective looks pretty much like a non-finite ing clause. I'm going to take one of these examples. Okay, this is the example I already gave you. And an amazing story, then I can see the noun head, the adjective, and then the determiner, right? This is a noun phrase. I don't know what's this. I might imagine is a subject, but I don't know. Let's take a look at this, another example. People playing on the beach. Okay, people playing on the beach. But this is another, people playing on the beach. People are, whatever, right? So yeah, this is a subject. I know that. They are is a noun phrase. Subject. They replaces the idea of people. Therefore, this is a noun head. And then we have playing. Playing is an ing thing, pretty much like amazing. The thing is playing an adjective or not? Okay, so here we have some issues. Very first thing I'm going to say is right after, we already saw this. Noun phrases can take non-finite ing clauses as post modifiers or complements, right? Right. Those those post modifiers or complements are obviously right after the noun head. So if I see a verb, an ing verb, right after the noun head, most probably I'm going to, most certainly, that ing verb is the verb of a non-finite clause, right? Right. What happens if I find this participle ing verb in front of or right before the noun head? Most certainly it's an adjective. So how can I state difference? The difference has to do with the position, with the placement, right? If the ing or ed is right after the head, most certainly 99.9% of the cases, we are going to analyze it as a non-finite clause. But if that ed or ing participle is placed right before the noun head, we're going to analyze it as an adjective. Therefore, and because of that, this analysis will be like this. Square brackets, because this is a clause. Then I'm going to separate the phrases, and now I'm going to state the noun phrase complement. The whole stuff is called ing clause. Well, the real name is non-finite ing clause. People are whatever. We don't know. So it's a post modifier. We don't know if it's obligatory or not. And then inside of that, you have the verb phrase verb playing made out of the verb head. And then you have on the beach, which is a prepositional phrase adverbial of place with a preposition head. And then the obvious noun phrase complement and determiner pre and noun head. Okay. Participial adjectives. Okay, participial adjectives, both ing and ed participial forms can be used as adjectives. We know that. By affixation, we know that. Adding a negative prefix to an already existing participial adjective. Okay. The participial adjective, then, it comes from a participial verb, but I can also add further modifiers, right? Well, I won't say modifiers, further morphemes. That is to say, I can add a prefix, like a negative prefix, to state or to change the meaning, right? Both of them can be placed in attributive or predicative syntactic role. However, participial adjectives are usually encountered within attributive context, right? They tend to be attributive adjectives, sorry, participial adjectives. They tend to be modifiers inside of noun phrases. Let's move on. Here you have a huge list. I won't read them, you just have to take a look at them. Adjectives with derivational affixes, those are perhaps the commonest form or the more or the ways in which we usually think about them. I won't read them, you just have to read it and then realize that those suffixes are going to provide certain meaning, right? When you say, for example, when you use the suffix less, you're saying that the resulting adjective means the lack of courtless, the lack of court, right? Full, it is that is full of it, right? Quite obvious. You just have to read them. Adjectives can also be formed by adding a negative prefix like sensitive, insensitive, standard, non-standard. Yeah, we know that. And then you have adjectival compounding. That is to say, we're going to mix two different lexemes into one single word, and then the result will be an adjective. Please pay attention to the fact that these two different lexemes, for example, in the second row, like adjective plus noun, full time, right? Even though they are two different lexemes, full and time, in order to fulfill the orthographic definition for lexemes, they are putting a hyphen in between, right? Just to erase the blank space. The other interesting thing about these compound adjectives is the fact that you have the reduplicative adjective, which we're going to define immediately, and perhaps that's it. Okay, so in some cases, the individual item in a compound adjective can be derived from other words. So for example, grayish, like in the first adjective, grayish blue, grayish blue. Grayish is a derivation of gray, right? And B, some compounds can be analyzed as two words if the hyphen was omitted, like highly sensitive in highly sensitive. It's right over here in some place. There it is, adjective, adverb plus adjective. Highly sensitive is one single adjective because of the hyphen. But if you erase the hyphen, what you have is an adjective phrase where highly is provided information about, is provided information to, or is modifying the meaning of the adjective head sensitive. Interesting. Adjectival compounds present a compact form of information. Quite obvious because they are two different lexemes, and we're going to use those two lexemes into one single. we're going to compress or join them into a single lexeme. So we're going to reduce in two to one, right? Often, alternative expression would require a full clause. That's interesting. Usually a relative clause. Thus, an attack that was motivated by racism becomes a racially motivated attack. Okay, so the idea is this. Language has every single language has a couple of rules, and one of those rules is the economy of language. Every single language is trying to provide as much information as it can, but with fewer resources. That is to say, we're trying to say the same, but in less by using fewer terms. So the relative clause, an attack that was motivated by racism, that's the relative clause that was motivated by racism. You can say the very same stuff by saying racially motivated attack. That is to say, where we are saving, or we are not stating two words, right? So we are reducing that. Let's take another example. In a speech before the ballot, Mr. Kovac, I don't know how to pronounce that, Kovac, whose career includes a stint as an economic advisor to Cuban leader Fidel Castro in the 1960s, said he was in favor of socially oriented market policies, right? Therefore, socially oriented can be paraphrased or rewritten into a relative clause in favor of market policies which are socially oriented, right? Second, I agree with the principles of a market economy which are socially oriented, right? The very same idea. One type of compound is more common in conversation, the reduplicative compounds, for example, wishy-washy or roly-poly. These compounds are different from the other compounds because the two parts rarely occur separately. That is to say, they are one single lexeme, and apparently they are in the process of becoming a single lexeme, not a simple or a complex lexeme, but not a compound lexeme. They also usually play with sounds, which make them more suited to conversation because it has some phonological features, right? To be honest, I've never heard anyone saying anything like that, so I don't know if that's being in use today. Summary, that's the important stuff. Characteristics of adjectives and adverbs. Okay, adjectives. Adjectives have certain typical characteristics in their form, meaning, and use. Central adjectives share all of these characteristics. Peripheral adjectives vary in the extent to which they share the characteristics. Adjectives have two major functions, attributive and predicative, inside of the noun phrase or as a valency pattern element. New adjectives can be formed in three ways: the use of participial forms, the use of derivational suffixes, and by compounding. In combination. Sometimes adjectives are used in combination for a particular semantic effect. Okay, here I'm going to state this. I didn't say this with the other group. Okay, I can combine adjectives. That is to say, I can put two adjectives together. What happens if I do this? A big round Antillian bread. I know the order is not right, okay, because there's a formula for this. You can see how you have three different adjectives, right? And these three different adjectives are modifying the noun head bread. Can I say big bread? Yes. Can I say round bread? Yes. Can I say Chilean bread? Yes. Can I mix them? Round, big Chilean bread, Chilean, big round bread. Yes, I can mix them. Therefore, All of them are pre-modifiers. Yeah, and there's coordination in that as well. Thank you, Cristobal. And it's telling you that all of these three different adjectives are mixed into one single unit. Okay, I won't say much about that, and just want you to pay attention to the idea that they are in free combination. When you have these type of adjectives, or when you have two or more adjectives together and they all work towards the head, you're going to say they are in free combination. Okay, important because of this. Because of this. Repeated comparative adjectives, they are used to denote an ever-increasing degree of the adjective. So when I say funnier and funnier, is a way of saying increasingly funny. His own need for food grew slighter and slighter. That is to say, increasingly slighter. Why I'm saying this? I'm saying this because slighter and slighter, they are not in free combination. They are one single thing, right? Why do I know that? Or how do I know that? I know that because their meaning is different, right? I'm going to read it again. They are used to denote an ever increasing degree, right? Her visits to the country to see her soon became rarer and rarer. The very same idea. They are not just two free combination adjectives. They are one single lexeme because they are just having a different meaning. See the branches get smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's a very good example because you can see that there are three different adjectives, but they are saying increasingly smaller, right? Right. So there's a huge difference between repeated comparative adjectives and between adjectives in free combination on the one hand, right? On the second hand, please take a look at the position of those adjectives. All of them are predicative adjectives. That is to say, they play the role of a complement inside of the valency pattern. They are not inside of the noun phrase. That's also very important.
Profesor.
Dígame.
Entonces, en eso, es que como hay tres adjetivos en la oración que hizo anteriormente, no queda ninguno como adjective head.
Los tres son adjective heads.
Ah, pero no se coloca.
Lo colocaría, colóquelo igual. Es que no quiero entrar, es que, a ver, lo que no quiero hacer es meter, es bombardear la información. Lo voy a decir muy simple. La presencia de la palabra and marca un efecto gramatical que se llama coordinación. Coordinación significa que lo que esté adelante de and y lo que esté detrás de and se une en una sola unidad. ¿Sí? Entonces lo que estamos viendo allí, en términos reales y estrictos, se llama Simple Coordination of Adjective Heads. Toda esta materia la tiene que ver el próximo semestre, así que por eso no la quiero nombrar mucho más que esto, ¿ya? Por lo tanto, si lo ve algo así, en la prueba, le pido que coloque adjective head a cada uno de los adjectives que se ven ahí.
Ah, ya, perfecto. Es que
Okay.
me estaba como confundiendo, entonces me entró esa duda.
Claro. La posibilidad de que haya más de un head la da la coordinating conjunction and. Ese es el tema. Por eso es así. Avancemos. Some adjectives make comparatives with more. Sí, lo sabemos. Those are the long adjectives. Rather than ER, those are the short adjectives. In this case, the structure repeats the adverb more. I got more and more popular, strangely enough. I got more and more popular. I'm going to provide the analysis for this, okay? Okay. Well, it got more and more popular, strangely enough. Why do I say strangely enough, or how, or why? Why do I analyze strangely enough as being another separated unit? Because I can take it and place it at the very beginning. Strangely enough, it got more and more popular, right? That's my proof that it's not inside of the adjective phrase, okay? So I know this is an adjective phrase acting as a subject complement. What got more and more popular? It goes to the subject. Then popular is an adjective, head, and then more is an adverb, pre, and is a coordinating conjunction, C-O-O-C-J, and more is another adverb pre-modifier. Please do it in that way, okay? Intensifiers, good and nice. Okay, when I say intensifier, please write it down. Write adverb next to intensifier. It's the very same idea. You can intensify an adjective, that is to say, saying very, right? Or you can decrease or downtone. Please write that word. Down, tone, the tono, downtone. You can intensify or downtone an adjective. The best example for an intensifier would be the adverb very, and a very good example for a downtoner would be the adverb less. Adjectives are conjoined with the intensifier good. Okay, adjectives are linked or combined with the intensifier, the adverb good or nice, in order to intensify the meaning of the adjective, right? So if I say good and sorry, it is the very same if I say very sorry. So there is a fixed phrase, there is a construction. That construction is good and or nice and. If I say nice and sorry, is the very same if I'm saying very sorry. The very same happens with good, okay? In contrast, similar sequences with an attributive position do not intensify the meaning of the second adjective. Rather, the first adjective retains its meaning. Okay, good and sorry all over again. This intensifier good and sorry, the intensifier good and or nice and work when they are predicative adjectives, right? Because on the other hand, if you use this within an attributive context, that is to say inside of a noun phrase, they are going to work as free combination modifiers. There are many good and prosperous people here. In that example, good and prosperous people doesn't mean very prosperous people. It means good people and prosperous people. Is it clear? Un poco enredado, ¿queda claro, no? ¿Queda claro entonces?
O sea, no mucho. O sea, es que no entiendo si igual al good y al se
Así
le va a poner como adjetivo o como...
de voy a hacer un ejemplo muy malo, perdón. Was nice. The results was nice and positive. In this case, the result was nice and positive. ¿Sí? Esto es una adjective phrase, subject complement, nice and positive. La pregunta es, esto es un adjective, lo sé. Esto es una coordinating conjunction, lo sé. Y este es un adjective, lo sé. ¿Cuál de los dos es el head? El último. ¿Y qué es el primero? Es un pre-modifier. De hecho, si alguien me dijera que nice and, las dos palabras juntas, es un adjective pre-modifier, también lo daría bueno. Why? Because this is a fixed phrase. I won't say phrase, but I would say it's a fixed expression. It's a chunk. When you say nice and then an adjective, you're saying very, the adjective, very positive, okay? But in order to do that, the place where you can do it is in a predicative adjective. In a predicative adjective, what is that? It's an adjective phrase acting as a subject complement, right? Because when you do this in an attributive context, they behave as free combination. Right? People, there are many people, right? So this is a determiner. There are many good people. So this is an adjective pre-modifier. This is a coordinating conjunction. There are many prosperous people. This is another adjective pre-modifier. Please note nice and, good and. Even though they are written in the same way, they mean differently because of their syntax, because of their syntactic position. In the first example, the result was nice and positive. The adjective phrase is in predicative position. Meanwhile, in the second example, there are many good and prosperous people. Good and is placed in an attributive position. ¿Queda claro? Creo que sí. Avanzo. No, Marcelo, dígame. ¿Qué pasa? Escríbame, dígame como quiera.
Aló.
Marcelo, lo escucho.
Ahí. Pero no sé por qué se me fue la paila del internet. No sé por qué es distinto el primer ejemplo del segundo.
El
¿Son
primer ejemplo,
distintos adjetivos o...?
no. En el primer ejemplo, la construcción good and o nice and se encuentra en un contexto sintáctico que se llama Predicative Adjective. ¿Sí? En ese contexto sintáctico significa que hay una adjective phrase que está funcionando como subject complement y cuando allí funciona, adentro de ella está el nice and o el good and, allí es cuando funcionan como intensifiers. ¿Qué quiere decir eso? Que nice and no son dos palabras, no son dos significados, sino que uno solo. Y el significado es very. ¿Cachai? Por eso digo que podría bancarme que ustedes, si me lo explican, en el análisis dijeran que nice and en ese contexto es solo un adjective pre-modifier o inclusive podrían decirme que es un adverb pre-modifier. ¿Ya? Porque es un caso especial, es una excepción. Mientras que en el segundo ejemplo, a pesar de que dice lo mismo, good and, o podría decir nice and, en este caso no son una expresión, sino que cada uno significa su cosa, lo mismo propio. ¿Debido a qué? Debido a que su contexto sintáctico es otro. Esto es un attributive position. No sé si queda claro.
Sí, profe. Así.
Ya, bacán. Eso, buena. Queda poquito, chiquillos, tranqui. More about attributive adjectives. Ya, todo esto son adjetivos pre-modifiers de una noun phrase. Nada nuevo. Attributive adjectives usually modify common nouns, lo sabemos. Attributive adjectives can also modify proper place nouns, lo sabemos. Less commonly, they modify the name of a person. Cuidado con eso. Less commonly, they modify the name of a person. Little Laura Davis, the late John C. Drennan. When they say less commonly, is because these modifications are related to titles, I would say. Titles, right? Attributive adjectives can also modify personal pronouns. Yeah, it is true. They can modify personal pronouns. Although these adjective plus personal pronoun combinations are generally rare, they do occur occasionally in conversation and fiction. I would say in fiction more than in conversation, especially in exclamations. Lucky, poor, and silly are the most used. So you can say lucky you, not like poor me, silly old him. Okay, I would say that the last usage, that is to say adjective plus personal pronoun, is more related to novels, right? To writing, instead of any other way, right? I think it's quite formal, right? Then please pay attention to the third example. In the first example, like you, is quite simple because it's just a noun phrase, and then you have an adjective pre-modifier, and then just a noun head, no problem. In the second one, in the second example, I think like is performing the role of a verb, right? So not like verb phrase, poor me. And poor me works in the very same manner as in the first example. One difference. The difference is that in the second example, poor me is in object position. That is to say, me is an object pronoun, which means that these adjectives can pre-modify pronouns, whether they are, or it doesn't matter if they are subject or object. In the third and last example is perhaps the most interesting one, because you can see silly old him, which is an object, right? And in this object, you can see two adjectives pre-modifiers, silly him, old him, right? Then, subject predicates. Okay, more about predicative adjectives. Let's remember that we are using Douglas Biber's book, and in Biber's book, he changed some names, some terms, right? So whenever you read predicative, like in letter A, subject predicative, we are referring to that as subject complement, okay? The very same will happen with the object predicative. We are referring to that as object complement. Subject predicatives complement a copular verb. Okay, subject complements, they complement a copular verb, right? What's a copular verb? I'm going to do copular verb. I'm going to read this. A copular verb is a special kind of verb used to join an adjective or noun complement to a subject. Common examples of copular verbs are the verb to be, the verb appear, the verb seem, look, sound, smell, taste, feel, become, and get. A copular verb expresses either that the subject and its complement denote the same thing, or that the subject has the property denoted by its complement, right? Therefore, whenever you see a clause with the verb to be, most certainly the following adjective phrase is a subject complement. And that's it. Therefore, she seems quite nice, really, right? The verb phrase seems is a copular verb, right? Seem. And then quite nice is an adjective phrase. That adjective phrase is a subject complement because it's provided information about the subject. And because of that, it's in predicative position, right? The same with all the rest of them. Many of the most frequent predicative adjectives occur with a phrasal or clausal complement of their own. That is, they have a prepositional phrase to infinitive clause or that clause that complements their meaning. For example, okay, we're going to do it. You are good at remembering numbers. When you're saying you're good at remembering numbers, then I see that this is a clause. That's the verb. You are what? You are good at remembering numbers. Okay, so this is an adjective phrase. I know this is a verb phrase, and this is an adjective phrase performing the role of subject complement. How do I know that? Well, because I have the verb be, right? Subject, verb phrase, verb be, and then an adjective. Therefore, what I'm saying is about the subject is a subject complement. The adjective then is the adjective head. And next to that, I have a prepositional phrase, right? Therefore, adjective phrases can take prepositional phrases complement. This prepositional phrase is the complement of this adjective phrase. Inside of the prepositional phrase, I have the preposition head, and next to that, I have remembering numbers. That's something quite new. With this, I'm saying this. Prepositional phrases can take noun phrase complements, but also ing clauses complement. Inside of this, I have phrases, remembering, and then numbers. Remembering, remembering what? Remembering numbers. Careful. Second, that is nice of you. The second example, that is nice of you is a prepositional phrase, a common prepositional phrase, so I won't say anything else. Assisting concept is subject to several constraints. It is subject to several constraints. In this example, I have the very same idea. to several constraints. I'm going to change colors, okay? I'm not going to replace the round brackets by square brackets because this is a clause. And inside of this clause, I have two phrases, to several and constraints. What's the name of this? The name of this is a to infinitive clause. Why do I call it to infinitive? Well, I call it in that way because of the form of the verb phrase. And this to infinitive clause is going to no, me equivoqué, chiquillo. Me equivoqué. Estoy mintiendo porque several es un adjective. Esta es solo otra prepositional phrase. Me adelanté y la hice mal. Jaja. I see several constraints. Prepositional phrase complement. Preposition head. I see noun phrase complement, several. Adjective. Pre-modifier constraints, noun head. Eso. Me enredé con several, sorry. And then we have closal complements. You look good enough to eat. I am sure that the affinities between Scots and whatever, right? You look good enough to eat. Okay, I'm using this because you have to pay attention to the following idea. You look good enough to eat. This is the adjective phrase, subject complement, good, adjective, head, enough is an adverb, post, modifier. Be very careful because enough is perhaps, I would say, the only adverb. Well, I won't say only, but it is very common that goes right after the head. Strong enough, brave enough, intelligent enough, whatever enough, right? So enough is an adverb post modifier. And next to that, you have to eat. And to eat is a to infinitive clause, right? Whenever I see a verb phrase, I'm seeing a clause, right? This is a to infinitive. Clause, complement, verb phrase, verb head. And that's it. Okay. Object predicatives occur with complex transitive verbs. I won't say anything about that. Following the direct object. Okay. Yeah, let's take a look at the examples. I said, you've got all your priorities wrong. You said, you've got all your priorities wrong. You said, you have got all your priorities wrong. This is a very difficult clause. I'm going to ask you to pay attention to it. You said you've got all your priorities wrong. Okay, so you said, alcanzan a ver el that omitido, ¿no? You said that you have got all your priorities wrong. Hay un that omitido después de said. You said that you have got all your priorities wrong. Okay, so what are we going to do? We're going to analyze it as a clause, right? That you have got, you said this, ¿cierto? Tú dijiste esto, you said this. You said what? That you've got all your priorities wrong. Es solo una unidad. ¿Cómo se llama esta unidad? Es una that clause. ¿Cómo se llama en verdad? Les voy a dar el nombre de verdad al tiro. Se llama that nominal clause acting as, ¿como que está actuando? You said this, un objeto. Noun phrase subject, verb phrase verb. ¿Qué hay adentro de esta that nominal clause? Sujeto, you have got what? All your priorities. ¿Y cómo estaban esas priorities? Wrong. Noun phrase, subject, pronoun head, verb phrase, verb, auxiliary verb, premodifier and verb head. You have all what? This is a noun phrase, object, all your. Hay una determiner phrase. Con un all your. Eso es all es un predeterminer y un post. ¿Cómo sé que es un post así rápido? Porque lo único central determiner son los artículos. Y al lado está priorities. Y wrong es una adjective phrase, complemento del objeto. Adjective head. Cuidado. Cuidado. Esto es mucho más real. ¿Ya? Other syntactic roles of adjectives. Estamos terminando. Adjectives as post modifiers, common after compound indefinite pronouns as heads. It is a shame if you haven't got anyone musical here. Please pay attention to the noun phrase anyone musical, where you have the pronoun anyone. Anyone is not any pronoun. Its name is compound. Quite obvious, right? Anyone, anybody, someone, somebody, right? Its compound is indefinite because it doesn't make reference, or it doesn't state any clear reference to any person, right? And it's a pronoun. Compound indefinite pronoun. You can place adjectives right after compound indefinite pronouns. Therefore, you can have post adjectives, post modifiers. That's it. Adjectives as noun phrase heads. In this role, they can be modified by adverbs. Be very careful because in this example, you will see that the noun head has been omitted or erased. Therefore, the adjective is taking the role of the head, but inside of a noun phrase. I think the contrast between the very rich and the very poor in this country is disgusting. When you're saying the very rich, the very poor, you are missing something, right? You're the very rich, but who? The very poor, who? Right? Therefore, it's going to be analyzed as a noun phrase, the very rich, with rich as an adjective head inside of a noun phrase. All over again, adjectives can be noun phrases heads. An adjective can be a noun phrase head if the head is being erased or omitted. Okay. These people may be the real working poor people, the real elderly people, the very young people, the unemployed people, or the transient people, the very same idea. Adjectives as linking expressions. They sometimes serve to link clauses or sentences to one another. Adjectives in these roles can also have modifiers. So we're talking about adjective phrases as linking devices. Linking devices. When you're saying, for example, still more important, right? Still more important. That's a linking device. We're going to use that adjective phrase in order to link the coming clause to the previous one, right? Still more important. Adjectives as free modifiers are the ones we have already explained. is when you have all these definitions, all these descriptions provided to a certain noun, like round, wooden, handmade table, right? And finally, you have adjectives as exclamations, and those are the adjectives that teachers like to use during lessons, right? Like, for example, saying great, good, marvelous, brilliant, right? Those are the usages for that, right? Let's take a look at the summary. Adjectives can have two different kinds of meaning. Okay, we haven't discussed the idea of meaning because it has to do with semantics. Adjectives are sometimes combined in interesting ways. Repetition of comparative adjectives shows increasing intensity. Meanwhile, combination with good and or nice and intensifies the meaning. We know that. Attributive adjectives occur mainly before common nouns, but they can also occur before proper and personal pronouns. Predicative adjectives can function as subject predicatives, subject complements, or object complements. Only a few adjectives are common in both predicative and attributive positions. And then adjectives have 5 syntactic roles in addition to their attributive and predicative roles, like postpose modifier, noun phrase head, linking expression, exclamation, and free modifier. Okay. Ok. Veamos entonces 1539. Tomamos harto rato. Busquemos algo que analizar. Vamos a ver qué dice The Guardian de Chile. ¿Eh? Chile candidates battle for moderate votes as presidential race nears end. Chile's presidential race is hurtling towards its conclusion with the two remaining candidates battling to secure moderate votes in a deeply divided political landscape. Muy buena oración. Muy bien, chiquillos. Eso en su cuaderno. Análisis sintáctico completo. Hay unas adjective phrases por ahí dando vuelta. Hay unas ing clauses. Está entretenido. 15:40. Nos juntamos a las 15:50 y avanzamos por lo menos marcando los paréntesis. ¿Queda claro lo que debo hacer?
Sí.
Perfecto. 15:50 nos juntamos. Regresamos. Okay. Going to Chile's presidential race is hurtling towards its conclusion, with the two remaining candidates battling to secure moderate votes in a deeply divided political landscape. Okay. This is a prepositional phrase, so I'm going to take it down. Let's take a look at this. Chile's presidential race is hurtling towards is a preposition. I'm quite sure about it. Towards. Preposition. Towards its conclusion, with the two remaining candidates battling to secure moderate votes. I believe it's this. In a deeply divided political landscape, Chile's presidential race is hurtling towards its conclusion, with the two remaining candidates battling to secure moderate votes. Chile's, right? Presidential race. This is a genitive phrase. Acting as Chile's presidential race. What kind of race or whose race? Whose. Therefore, is acting as a determiner. Inside of that, we have a noun head. Is hurtling. Prepositional phrase. Where, I think, right? Is hurtling where towards its conclusion. This is a preposition with a noun phrase complement. Its conclusion, with the two remaining candidates battling. This is, I'm going to change colors. A non-finite ing battling to secure moderate votes, right? This is a prepositional phrase. It is hurtling with them, right? Object. Preposition head, noun phrase complement, the two. This is a determiner phrase with a central and a post. Remaining candidates, remain. Here we have a participial adjective. No. Comes from here. Candidate. And then battling is it's an ing clause. Is it obligatory or not? I think it isn't. Battling to this, or because of this. I think this is a prepositional phrase because of this. The two remaining battling to secure, battling for this object, right? preposition head, noun phrase complement. No, wait. To secure. Is that a verb or not? Wait. I think it's a verb. If it's a verb, then what we have is another clause. To secure this. So we have a to infinitive clause battling because of this, right? With a verb phrase, verb to secure this. Moderate votes in a deeply divided political landscape. Deeply landscape, no. Well, wait, this is a prepositional phrase anyway, adverbial. And then I have this noun phrase complement. And inside of that, I have a determiner, a landscape, deeply divided, adjective phrase, deeply divided, political landscape. And that's it. ¿Dudas? Está difícil, no está tan fácil.
No, profe, está bien.
Ya, perfecto.
Está bueno salió bueno para practicar porque aparecieron varias cosas que uno se le van olvidando en el camino.
Les recomiendo que se consigan lápices de colores y cada vez que aparezca una cláusula nueva, cambien el color para que la vean, sea más fácil, se entienda mejor. ¿Ya? Eso, 15:58. Nos vemos el miércoles con Adverb Phrases y más análisis. Les rendereo y subo el video. Eso, pues. Que estén todos súper. Cuídense mucho.
Igual usted, profe, gracias.
Oye, una cosa más.
Chao,
Antes de,
profe, cuídese.
antes de hay una... Les voy a dejar una invitación. Me dan un segundo, no se vayan. Tranqui. Se los paso al tiro. Porque Fernando Atria, ¿cachan a Fernando Atria, cierto?
Ujú.
Fernando Atria va a hacer un conversatorio para el PEDA, para el Observatorio de Política Educacional del PEDA. Entonces nos pidieron que copiar dirección de enlace. Y ahora voy a acá. Que intentara que vaya harta gente, pues está interesante lo que diga el caballero porque va a hablar. Ahí está el enlace, chiquillos. Si alguien quiere entrar, les digo al tiro cuando es, no me corten, salgo al tiro de aquí. Turururu. Es el 16 de diciembre a las 10 de la mañana. Fernando Atria en tu aula, conversaciones sobre el proceso constituyente, una conversación con estudiantes del curso de política educativa y toda la comunidad UMCE. Convoca el Observatorio de Política y Gestión Educativa de la UMCE, el Departamento de Formación Pedagógica de la UMCE. Así que va a haber un famoso, para que intenten asistir, corran la voz ahí, es importante.